Sam's dad. We're in a stand on November 14th down outside of Eden, Texas. It's about 40 miles from St. Angelo. First time Sam and I have been in a stand together in probably a decade, so it's kind of cool to hang out with my boy in a stand and hunt together. So we're in the middle of nowhere. It's desolate out here, you'll see as we show video. And we're in the stand early this afternoon, earlier than normal. And we've seen one yearling deer so far, but nothing else. So it's kind of windy today, so the deer may be laying down for a while. But hopefully we'll show you some good footage in action. Enjoy.
I want to back up before we get to Menard in 2017 to about 30 years ago. I began hunting as a young man, not as a very young, small guy, but as a 30-something-year-old man. First time I ever went deer hunting, went with a guy, I'll call his name John because that was his name. And we went out to the woods, got in the middle of nowhere. He drops me off. I said, "What am I going to do?" He says, "Sit by a tree, be real still, and if it looks like a deer, shoot it." Early on, I have a love for the woods, and I wanted to hopefully pass it on to my son. And so we started when you were about, what, 7 or 8?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And first time Sam and I hunted together, he just came to watch. A friend took us down to a lease down in Hamilton, Texas. I was fortunate that day to in a short time, to harvest 2 deer. And I remember Sam looking at me and saying, "Dad, hunting sure is fun, it's easy." Now he knows
It's a little different than that.
most days you come back empty. When Sam and I would, as a young man, a young father, Sam and I would go out to hunt. And we roughed it, we camped out there in all kinds of different weather. That was always a fun to do, to get out in the woods and just be gone for a week, just to hang out. The girls didn't want to do that, but Sam and I enjoyed doing that together. And those are some fond memories of Sam and I in the stands. And he began hunting with iron sights. He has not said that, but I wanted him to learn how to use iron sights. So he killed his first deer with iron sights. And then at that point, I wanted to hunt by himself, and I would not be very far away, just to make sure, just to be there for recovery or whatever we needed to do. The first morning, we got there that afternoon, dropped our stuff off at camp, got in the woods in the afternoon, early afternoon, and suddenly we saw deer immediately. And Sam has a lot better eyes than I do, younger eyes, and he was picking up turkeys and varmints and deer, and nothing mature that we would put on the ground.
It was still encouraging to us because we knew that there were big deer in the area. We'd seen pictures, we'd seen sign. It was obvious that there were some good bucks walking around around the very stand that we were sitting in. But like Dad said, just due to the wind conditions, none of the big boys were moving.
Second afternoon, we got in a stand, and Sam and I are sitting there, and his eyes got about this big around. He says, "Dad," he says, "don't move. There's a huge deer right behind you."
At first glance, this deer was huge. He had kickers and all kinds of junk just growing over his brow tines and his G2s, lots of mass, and the direction he was traveling kind of angling into our stand, but walking past us and then away from us. It was really hard to kind of gauge his age, and of course we're excited. We're looking at the horns like, oh my word, this is a giant.
It was a big deer.
It was a big
body
deer. And we got to looking at him. We were excited. We were thinking about taking a shot, and then kind of just his behavior, kind of how he was built body-wise. It was obvious that he was a younger deer, and one that probably would not be acceptable to take off the place. Unfortunately, he was a nice buck.
We just saw it. Dean frame 8 with some gel on to make him a 10 point. You let him walk. He's a young deer. He'll be a great trophy in a year or two for someone else, but not us. Also, we're looking for a more mature aged deer. So it's 2:30 in the afternoon. We figure we're going to wait a little longer.
We were seeing a lot of deer, and we saw another buck more than once. He was he's a little bit older. He was a real heavy and wide 8 point. Honestly, more like a mainframe 6 with just a couple crab claws in the very front. He was a giant deer, but we're very management minded hunters, and particularly on this trip, we were trying to be as conservative and as management minded as we could. And this deer, we were guessing this deer at about 4.5, which for a lot of people in a lot of places is acceptable, and in some places for me that would be acceptable as well. But we also knew the deer that were out there. We knew that there were more mature deer in that area, that this was, even as big as he was, this was not the dominant buck in this area. So the first encounter we had with him, we made the choice to let him walk in hopes that we'd see something a little bit better.
This segment of Fall Obsessed Outdoors is brought to you by DM Bullard Leather, custom leather belts and holsters for all your leather needs.
The morning of the last hunt, it was pitch black. We were out in the middle of nowhere. It was pitch black. I couldn't see Salmon. He was sitting as close to me as we are right now. And if I looked at him, I could not even see him. That's how dark it was. And I can remember us both putting our heads down, waiting for first light to come. And as it just barely started first light, we could see activity in front of us. There were deer in front of us, but suddenly everybody just kind of stopped, and off to our right came a deer that we hadn't seen before. And this deer was a little different. The tines were taller, but he carried himself to, and the deer reacted to him differently.
Just the body language when he came out, it was obvious that he was the top dog around there. He was pushing around the bucks, the big bucks that we had seen in the days prior. He was pushing them around, and I'm sitting there behind a camera trying to get as much as I can on video, and it's still low light quality. We're watching the time, we're waiting for legal shooting light, and just trying to get a glimpse of this deer to try and figure out exactly what he is. We know he's mature, we know he's more than likely a shooter, but we want to be sure.
Classic leg kick, and we were celebrating, having that deer on the ground. So
It's Thursday morning. Couldn't stand, couldn't see the guys at my base. Had a few big deer out there, so I took a shot of them. I think I said 10 point. Shot him, he ran off, so we took a watch him.
Dad made a good shot on it. Like he said, it was the classic leg kick, and he ran off into the brush, and took a little bit longer to find him than we had hoped. The trail went on a little bit longer than we had anticipated, and because of that we ended up giving him a little bit more time. than we would normally, but with the help of the other guys there in camp, we were able to find him before lunchtime, so it was pretty exciting.
Exactly. Probably the most memorable part of this hunt was being able to hang out with my son for a few days, to spend time in the stand together, to just talk like we're talking now, but face to face. Sam's a husband, a father. I have a small company, so I get real busy with my job, my company. So we don't see as much of each other as I would like. That's me. But it was cool to hang out with my son. We haven't spent time in a stand together for 10 years.
It's been a long time.
It's been about 10 years since we sat in a stand together, since he was a small boy. And what's cool is I didn't grow up hunting. Sam is a much better hunter than I am. He's a bow hunter extraordinaire. It's been fun to watch him hone his skills and hone his abilities out there, and I can't wait to see his son Wyatt, how expert a hunter he'll be, because he'll start a lot younger than I ever did, probably younger than Sam ever did. So hopefully carrying that tradition hunters on into future generations.